Buckle up, folks, because this one's a doozy. We got to lock in. You and me and you, us together. We're here. We're here right now, and we're going to do this. All right. I'm hyping myself up. This is going to be so long. But first, welcome to my channel. My name is Frank, and I talk about all things bookish. So last week, Laura Ray Says posted this video about author A.M. Walker and the situation kind of surrounding the author and what happened. Basically, the rundown is that the author reached out to a book club in New England and asked them if they would be willing to read her book in exchange for some reviews on Goodreads. The book club did actually accept this request, but they asked if the author would be willing to send over some free copies of the ebook so that they could actually read and review it. Allegedly, the author did accept, according to the screenshots that Laura has in her video, and did, in fact, allegedly say that she was comfortable sending over some free copies. So the book club reads the book. A few of them leave reviews on Goodreads, and a couple of these reviews are 1- and 2-star reviews that are constructive, go into depth about the things they did not like about the book. In my opinion, they were very respectful and kind reviews, considering the fact that they were low star ratings. Now, apparently the author was hurt by these reviews, so the publishing house that published this book, of which she is the CEO, right? The author is the CEO of this publishing house, reached back out to the book club on social media and asked them if they would be willing to remove their reviews because it hurt the author's feelings. And now because of these reviews, she's considering not even releasing the rest of the trilogy because it just, I guess, impacted her so much, these negative reviews. Now, personally, I have never seen this before. Usually thrillers are standalones. Like in the genre, it's very common to pretty much have standalone novels. I've never seen a trilogy of thrillers before, a trilogy, if you will. But I suppose it's not completely unheard of, right? It's just not something I've really ever seen. Now, this video is not about my thoughts on authors and publishing houses, for that matter, trying to censor readers and book reviewers. But I will say that Laura Ray's video did intrigue me enough to actually go and read the book for myself because I wanted to know what it was all about. So I used my library card on Hoopla to access the ebook. And let's just say that the reviews the book club members left are much nicer than they could have been. I am going to give a disclaimer that I feel is usually implied in my deep dive analyses videos on books, but here it is. This review contains spoilers, critiques, my opinions on the source material, and is not intended for the author, friends, family, or fans of the author, and will be filled with no shortage of anger and frustration as well as potential poop talking, all right? If you enjoyed this book, do not watch this video. Now, according to the author's 5-star review of her own book, this story is probing us to ask the question of why do we sometimes find ourselves relating to characters that we think we shouldn't? And my answer is simple in the case of this book. I didn't have that issue whatsoever. None of these characters were relatable to me or even likable for that matter, in my opinion. I did not connect with any of these. I did not find myself relating to people I think I should have. I didn't like any of these people at all. Now, let me go ahead and give you a quick synopsis of this book because, to be honest, there is not a lot of plot going on, so it's going to be really quick. Our main character, Emily Bird, is plotting to murder her fiancé Remy on the night of their wedding.
Or, to save on postage, I'll just poison him with this.
Why is she planning this, you ask? Is he abusive? Did she catch him cheating? No, nothing like that. That would actually make sense. Her motivation is actually because she wants to achieve the status of widow. Yes, you heard that correctly. For some reason, she has gotten it in her head that widows are revered and unforgettable, and that is what she wants for her life. She doesn't want to live a normal apple pie life. She wants people to remember her forever as a widow. That is her motivation behind plotting to murder a man that she's been with for 6 years.
Hello friends, it's Editing Frank. I'm just here because I want to say something really quick. I know that I'm a bit brutal in this video, okay? This was my notes for this, this was all kind of a stream of consciousness thing where I was just looking at bullet points and just kind of riffing and just really going a little bit hard in this video. It is brutal, but you gotta understand something. I still am very angry that this author, allegedly inserted herself in a reader space where she was not asked to be, right? She reached out to the book club, who primarily reads thrillers, by the way, so they would know what does and does not make a good thriller, okay? Asked for their feedback, was so upset when she received their feedback that she allegedly used her status as a CEO of a publishing house to use that publishing house to reach out to the members of this group, or the group as a whole, and guilt and manipulate them into feeling bad for her and feeling bad about the fact that because of these reviews, she was considering not even publishing the rest of the trilogy, okay? And then asked how they could possibly ignore such a nice message. Remember, this author, I read the author's note, this author has, I'm pretty sure, a bachelor's in psychology. So allegedly knew exactly what she was doing, right? So to do that, and then to lie on these people and claim that they pirated your book after there are screenshots that were posted by the South Shore Reading Club or whatever they're called, that you had agreed via messages, allegedly, to send them free ebooks, and then you turned around and lied on them and said that they fucking pirated your book? I tried to take out a lot of the really harsh stuff, okay? But like when I was recording this, I was just raging. So yeah, this video makes me seem really mean, and I get that. I'm gonna take that one on the chin. Like, I accept that. If this video rubs you the wrong way, I understand why it would. But like, let this be a really harsh reminder to authors. Stay the fuck out of reader and reviewer spaces. And if you are going to ask readers to bring themselves into your space, then maybe have the decency to just let it rock, let it be. Because otherwise you're coming off not in a good light, and that's gonna rub a lot of readers the wrong way, man. Anyway, that's my disclaimer for this, for what you're about to watch. All right. Anyway, thank you. Bye.
So let's start with the things that I actually liked about this book so that you guys don't just say that I'm being a hater. Now, I liked that all of the chapters were rather short. Most of them were averaging about 5 to 9 pages. Some were a little bit shorter, some were a little bit longer, but most of them kind of hovered at that length, which I actually did enjoy. I like that in a book no matter what, but especially in thrillers, which this book supposedly is. I don't know, but there's also a simile that is used in chapter 1 that I actually did thoroughly enjoy. And it is kind of when she's like plucking cobwebs off of herself, and she compares it to a bird plucking at its own feathers. And I thought that was a pretty good simile. That was like one of the 2 out of the 9,000 similes in this book that I actually did enjoy and kind of actually made sense.
I heard you gave quite a performance, Macwell.
And the last, but probably least thing that I enjoyed was that there was a singular one relatable moment that I had with our main character in which her fiance approaches her and has this conversation about if she would consider changing the DJ for their wedding. And he's trying to have this conversation like a week and a half before their wedding. So naturally, she is livid about this. She is super pissed off, as anyone would be, but especially when you consider that she has a like type A personality. She's a very rigid, organized kind of person. So I can absolutely understand why she would be super pissed about him trying to have this conversation. So that was the single most relatable moment that I had with this character. And I will get into that. Like when we actually get to that part of the book, I will talk more about that. But yeah, so that's what I've got as far as things that I liked goes. Now let's get into everything that I didn't. So I don't really have this scripted. I'm really just going to be going off my notes that I was keeping as I was reading this book. So we're going to just have to break this down chapter by chapter. So in chapter 1, our main character, Emily, is in this like crawl space. She's in this like attic kind of situation. And she is consulting with a notebook that she has been keeping on poisonous plants for the last several months, talking about, like everything that you could possibly note take about poisonous plants. She's got it, right? She's got pressed flowers in there. She's got, what they do, what part of the plant is poisonous and blah, 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 blah. And she is in this crawl space consulting this notebook that she is like kind of obsessed with. She is very diligent about this note taking. And we had a repetition issue on page 1. I wish I was joking. Like I really wish that it wasn't like this problem wasn't punching me in the face on the first page, because this is an issue that we get throughout the book, this repetition.
No, God!
But let me just go ahead and read you the specific quote that I marked down here. This is all one sentence, by the way. So it says, I'd managed to avoid crawl spaces for as long as I could remember, ever since I was 12, and crawled in my family's crawl space on a dare. Shall I repeat that for you? It says, I managed to avoid crawl spaces ever since I was 12 and crawled in my family's crawl space. My sister in Christ. Page 1? Are you serious? Like, okay, I get that, like, maybe for some books, the later on we get into a book, like, after writing so many drafts, you kind of do get tired of editing and everything like that. But like page 1, was there no better way to write that, to like articulate that sentiment? Like you couldn't figure out a better way you had to use the word crawl space twice in the same sentence, and then the verb crawl. What do you do in a crawl space? Because I thought that you threw dance parties up there. I didn't know you crawled in a crawl space. Jesus. So anyway, so she's talking about, 90% of this book is this character having an internal monologue where she is coming to the same conclusions, having the same thoughts, having the same anxieties over and over and over and over again in every single chapter. It's like Groundhog's Day reading this book. So she's having this internal monologue about specific plants within this notebook, and she is referring to oleander, which if you don't know, this is the plant. It's very beautiful. It grows in abundance where I live. We literally have wild oleander everywhere. Okay, so are you ready for this simile? It says, it thrived in heat like it needed an audience. What does that mean? What does that mean? This means nothing. That's such a nonsense thing to say. It thrived in heat like it needed an audience. What is the correlation between something thriving in heat and like, how does heat produce an audience? An audience of what? An audience of what? Oh my God. I'm already getting bad. Hold on. let me take it easy, man. I'm gonna have a heart attack making this video. I gotta chill the fuck out. Holy crap. I'm so sorry. All right, moving on. So she comes out of this crawl space and, you know, she leaves her notebook up there because she doesn't want her fiance Remy seeing it for obvious reasons, right? And the main point that we get in chapter 1 is that she is obsessed with control. Like she is like it's beyond just like a normal like type A personality thing to the point where it is later on in the book I kind of have the suspicion that she might be OCD coded. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not trying to diagnose anybody. Certainly not trying to diagnose fictional characters. And that's not a bad thing. I don't dislike that about her character. I think it would actually answer a lot of why she is the way that she is. But the point is that she is like beyond just a normal controlling kind of person. And so that is the sentiment that not only do we get in chapter 1, we get that in every single chapter all the way till the end of the book. It is relentless. But yeah, that's mostly what chapter 1 is about. Her fiance comes home. She's like making dinner and, you know, putting on this performance, and she's like scrubbing the counter the same place for like the fucking 15 millionth time. And he comes in and he's like, hey, like, oh, it's so nice that you're making dinner. Like, you do know that our house is allowed to look a little bit lived in, right? Like, it's okay for things to not be completely perfect every single second of the day. And she just kind of like laughs it off. She's like, haha, yeah, buddy. And then she just like keeps on scrubbing the counter, and you're like, okay. So obviously that's the dynamic that we're having here. That's fine. So then we get to chapter 2 titled Emily and Remy. And the main point of this chapter is that we are introduced more to her personality and like what an obsessive weirdo she is. And this is where we kind of start getting the idea that she is plotting to murder her fiance. We don't know why yet. All we know is that it's very important to her to be remembered. Like that is the most important thing about her motivation, is that is the driving force behind it. There's a peculiar moment where she is setting the table for dinner and she says, I slipped off my shoes and set the table, period. Wine glasses, period. Cloth napkins folded into uneven triangles, period. I thought that was such a strange, like bizarre way to phrase that. I figured like, why not say something like, I slipped off my shoes and set the table with wine glasses and cloth napkins that were folded into uneven triangles. I don't know why this had to be broken up into 3 sentences, because you would think that with it being structured like that, there was some kind of point trying to be made, that maybe she was like checking off a list in her head or something like that. No, it was just a weird phrasing. And I didn't understand that. It felt very mechanical. It felt very like, almost like somebody literally reading off a checklist, but nothing that interesting, unfortunately. So my next note is, oh my God, okay, we get it. She's a control freak. Yeah, the author really does harp on this one. This whole book is really about what a control freak weirdo she is. And yeah, so that's like all that chapter 2 really is that we're kind of getting more inside Emily's head and understanding what kind of character she is. But again, like that's fine because we're in chapter 2, and this would have been a really great place to kind of like push off that point and start building up a backstory, start building up a tangible, deeper connection and understanding between Emily and Remy, and like why she feels like, you know, this is the moment to do it and whatever else. But no, instead, we're just going to keep getting bombarded with the idea that Emily is a control freak. Like I said, 90% of this book is just her monologuing in her fucking head about how stressed she is about the same stuff, how she's drawing the same conclusions about Matt, which is Remy's best friend, which I'll get to in a couple chapters. And she's just like going over, it's literally the same sentiments over and over again. And sometimes, not even sometimes, a lot of the time, it's the same exact phrasing, talking about the same exact ideas over and over again throughout the entire book. I really wish that I could, like, I'm trying to articulate to you how absolutely terrible the writing in this book is. Like, you don't even, okay. That's fine. So we're moving on. Chapter 3 is titled Wolfsbane. And there's just a lot of strange phrasing. She says something like, it was a compliment dressed as a dare. Nobody was daring her to do anything. She's referring to this moment where there's Miss Volkova, which is her neighbor across the street, who is very suspicious and very, you know, like mystic and secretive and all this stuff. And Volkova, has this very beautiful and large, extensive garden with a bunch of different flower varieties. And she has an entire section dedicated to poisonous plants, basically. And so Volkova just reaches across the fence and is like, hey, here's a poisonous flower. And Emily's like, it was like a compliment dressed as a dare. That doesn't mean anything, man. That really doesn't mean anything. Nobody was daring you at all. A compliment I can maybe see, but like daring you to do so, like, anyway.
So just move past it.
So she is kind of having this like big thought about, oh man, like what is this about? Like, why would Volkova give me this? Like, we barely know each other. Like, she's giving me this poisonous flower. Like, what does she want me to do with it? Like, oh my God, that's so strange. It's almost like she knows exactly what I'm planning to do. How strange, right?
That poison?
Yes, that poison.
Got you covered.
Excellent.
And that's like the whole relationship between these two women for the most part. Now, she also says this, I have this quote written where it says, I felt my thoughts morphing, comma, fixed. That is a contradictory statement. Something cannot be morphing and also be fixed. Those are actually, believe it or not, antonyms to one another. You cannot be morphing and also be fixed. This is nonsense. This means nothing. Why you would include this, I'm not sure. Was there no better way to articulate what idea you were trying to get across? I'm not sure. But whatever it was, I did not like this at all. And I was starting to have some suspicions of some things. And if you're a smart person, you could probably figure out what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to say nothing because I ain't trying to get fucking sued. So the other thing about this book is, like, remember, this is a thriller. Do you understand? A thriller is supposed to, a psychological thriller. So this is supposed to be fast moving, fast paced, punchy, like moving on, trying to like we're supposed to be in the psyche of this psychotic character. And instead, this book felt like I was wading through molasses. There were so many similes. I counted 18 in chapter 3, which was 6 pages long. Okay, it is simile after metaphor after simile, and most of them don't mean anything at all. They don't mean anything at all. They are nonsensical. Here's an example of one. It says, but all night she's like laying in bed next to Remy after she poisoned him, by the way. She's like running and conducting these tests leading up to the wedding night. So she's like microdose poisoning him.
Okay, what poison mimics the symptoms of appendicitis? Oh, you don't know.
And this simile says, but all night the thought circled my mind like my hand circling a pot on the stove. What? Like my hand circling the pot on the stove, bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Like that's what I fucking thought. I was like, you're joking. You could, because there's a hawk simile that I'm going to talk about later on that is, oh my God, it made no sense. It's like the similes got worse as the book went on. But there's a hawk simile later on. My thoughts circled it like a hawk circling its prey. Like that would have been a perfectly fine simile. It would have made a lot of sense. And anyway, yeah. So Miss Volkova is just handing out poison like candy, baby. She's literally just giving Emily all this poison, and she's like basically flat out just saying like, and this is how you use it, and this is how you prepare it, and this is what you do. And you're thinking to yourself, why is this woman so invested in Emily using this poison on her fiance? Like, what are her motivations? We never find out. We literally never find out. All of these characters are flat and one-dimensional. They have absolutely no history. They do not feel like actual people. They feel like holograms of a person. Like they have no depth to them whatsoever.
It's not badass. I have no depth perception!
So then we get to chapter 4 titled Car Parts. And Remy has asked Emily to go to his friend's automotive shop to drop off some car parts because Remy likes to fix cars in his spare time. That's kind of how he relieves stress after being a hotshot surgeon all day. That's what he does for work. And she is taking these car parts over to him. And remember this. Remember that he owns an automotive shop, right? This is chapter 4. This is what we learned about this character. But literally right at the end of the book, they're like, oh yeah, he's a firefighter. And you're like, what are you talking? He's a firefighter that also owns an automotive shop that never gets brought up ever again. The entire point of this chapter was so that we could be introduced to Matt's character in a somewhat like convenient way, although I feel like there's a million other ways that we could have been introduced to this character. And his job, his profession is just so inconsistent. Like, because they just throw out that he's a firefighter right at the very end. It means nothing. It's not builded on. It's not expanded on. He's just like, oh, in this scene, in this chapter, it's convenient for him to own an automotive shop. So that's what it is. And then later on, we want him to be this like hero hotshot dude. So we're going to make him a firefighter. That's literally what this was. Anyway, so she says, the problem with Matt wasn't just his presence, it was his influence. If Matt suggested that someone might not be trustworthy, Remy would start looking for evidence to support that theory rather than questioning whether the theory itself was valid. He trusted him, possibly more than me. And my note is, well, it's literally good that he does because you tried to poison him yesterday, girl. Not even tried to poison him. She literally did poison him the night before. So like, isn't it a good thing that this man has somebody in his fucking corner? Because you're a psycho.
Dwight. At 8 a.m. today, someone poisons the coffee. Do not drink the coffee. More instructions will follow. Cordially, future Dwight.
No!
You'll thank me later.
Deep breaths, Frank. Deep breaths. So my note is everything is a test. Everything is an evaluation. That's what I'm talking about is we're getting so bogged down with her internal monologuing where like no, like a character can never just do something. It has to be explained in excruciating detail for like a whole 2 paragraphs. And it's like, we're not moving, we're not doing anything. There are literally a handful of actual events and action that happens in this. And I can name them on one hand. 1, she goes to the automotive store. 2, she goes to a botany class. 3, she goes to talk to a professor at a university. 4, she gets married. That's all the action that happens in this book. Like, I don't know exactly the percentage, but if I had to wager a guess, I would say about 80% of this book is her internal monologuing. And then there's maybe like 5% that's action and the other 15% is dialogue. Not even good dialogue either. And not even like an extensive conversation. Like we get like 3 lines of dialogue at a time. So everything is an evaluation. Everything feels like a test. And this was such a weak attempt at building tension because there was no tension. Like it's not leading up to anything. It's never, these conclusions never move anywhere, never get anywhere. We're just constantly being bogged down by the repetition of the idea that Emily is so observant and so analytical about her surroundings and is picking up on all of these like, you know, body language things from all these different people. And like, it means nothing. So Volkova just straight up in this chapter 4, just gives Emily more poison. She's given her poison like 2 or 3 times at this point, just different flowers, explaining the different things, the different parts of the flower that are actually poisonous. And she's just handing it to her, just like as far as we know, for no reason at all. It's not like these 2 women have a very strong bond that they are building off of or any like major history between the 2. For all intents and purposes, these 2 women are strangers that know almost nothing about each other. And Volkova is just like, here's more poison, baby. Here's more poison. Here you go. Here you go. Poison for you. You get poison. You get poison. You get poison.
A few drops in his drink, then I'll propose a toast, and he will be dead before dessert.
In chapter 5, nothing noteworthy actually happens. The only thing that's worth mentioning, my one note is Emily is annoying as fuck. Yeah, I stand by that. She really is. The next note is that we find out that this is her motive. Like her motivation is to be a widow. The exact quote is, ordinary people lived and died unnoticed, but widows became legends. I don't know where this character gets this idea. We learn eventually that it might have something to do with her mother, who theoretically, as far as we can assume as the reader, it's never really outright said, but her mother poisoned her father and had like Munchausen by proxy, and now like Emily kind of has it. But the point is that we learn that her main motivation is to be remembered as a widow because apparently widows become legends. Now, this would have been a really fantastic opportunity for the author to maybe expand on that a little bit to give the reader more of an idea of what she's actually talking about, maybe providing some examples as to famous widows, like historical figures or celebrities or anything like that, that would actually explain to us why this character in her mind feels like being a widow is so significant, because I have never heard this before. I have never heard this idea that widows become legends. I do not think this is a like common understanding of the widow's status. So like this would have been a really great opportunity to actually explain this to people like you and me who don't freaking understand why this person would think that. But that's not what happens. Never happens. So chapter 6, titled Monopoly. And this is also where we learn that Emily and Remy have been together for 6 years. My only comment on that is, what a fucking waste of time for both of them. Yeah, I stand by that too. I don't think they're good together. I like, beyond the idea that she's plotting to literally murder him and has poisoned him several times up until this point in the book, I still think like personality wise, they are not a good match whatsoever. He is more carefree and chill. And like, she is like I said, she's obsessed with control. So they're sitting there and they're playing Monopoly. It's her, Matt, and Remy. And Remy gets a phone call from work, so he takes it in the other room. And in that time, it's just Matt and Emily just kind of sitting by the board game, waiting for Remy to return. And she's looking at Remy's pieces on the board. She's looking at all his money. It's all disorganized. All his pieces are like flipped over, like no care in the world. Very, very disorganized. And then she looks down at hers, and she has everything like all of her money is in meticulous, neat stacks according to numerical value. All of her pieces are organized and placed and whatever. She even brings her own paper clips to keep the stacks of money nice and organized and together so that they don't get knocked over and go flying nowhere, right? So she says, the difference felt symbolic of something larger, though I wasn't sure what. Gee, I do. It's literally the thing you have been complaining about him the whole book up until this point, which is that he is not an observant man, that he is not like considerate of your feelings about things when it comes to like organization and shit like that. She literally says early on, because Volkova gives her a poisonous flower and she pots it and puts it on the windowsill in their kitchen, and she's talking about how Remy doesn't notice anything unless it directly impacts him. And it's like, okay, that's like, I get that. Like, that's valid, girl. You can be pissed about that.
Who's this guy?
But she's like talking about this and complaining about this. So it's like, I don't understand how you don't pick up on what the symbolism is. I think the symbolism is very obvious. And you pride yourself on being an observant and intelligent human being, and yet you can't pick up on something this simple? That makes no sense for your character. That literally makes no sense. Because here's the thing, right? The next moment is this. She is talking and having a conversation with Matt because Remy is still out of the room having a phone conversation. And they're talking and he's like, don't you ever get tired of it? Like, you're so organized. Like, doesn't it ever get exhausting? Blah, 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 blah. And she says, he drummed his fingers against the rim of his glass, studying me with that too familiar look I'd learned to recognize and dread. It was the expression of someone who'd been thinking about you when you weren't in the room, who'd formed opinions about your behavior and was looking for opportunities to share them. So you're too dumb to realize what the symbolism behind Remy having disorganization and you having organization is in your game pieces of Monopoly. But you can pick up on all that. You can understand exactly what this man was thinking and what this facial expression was supposed to mean. Like that. Fuck off. Literally shut up. I don't know. It was just super annoying. And she's like, oh, what do you mean? Organization is nice. Like, how being organized is a good thing. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but don't you ever get tired of it? This like need for a sense of control. And she says, are you ready for this? She says, control, ugly when applied to women. When men did it, they were leaders. When women did it, they were controlling, desperate, manipulative. Honey, you are all of those things. You are all of those things. He's not talking about women in general, B. He's talking about you. He's talking about you as an individual human being. You are desperate. You are manipulative. You are controlling. I don't even know. Your revelations about misogyny mean absolute fuck all to me. You are literally plotting to murder your fiance. I am not interested at all in whatever revelations you are happening about the greater issue of misogyny and patriarchal values and shit. Like, I don't care. That means nothing to me because he clocked you. He clocked your shit and you're pissed about that. And you're like trying to make this a big, larger issue. And it's not. You are desperate. You are controlling. You are manipulative. You literally have poisoned your fiance several times. What are you talking about?
So just move past it, all right?
Are you getting it now? Are you understanding how this book was like, it's tragically bad. This is Age of Scorpius bad. This was borderline unreadable, okay? So she says, he thought it was about control, but he didn't understand. It was about refusing to live a life so dull, no one remembered the details. If you want to be remembered, go break a fucking world record. I don't understand how, like, your first thought is like, oh yeah, I should just murder my fiance so that I can become memorable to people. I don't know. That, like, again, the motivation behind this all is so weak. My next note says, I'm literally being drowned in similes. Yes, I stand by that. This book is like, the majority of it is just nonsensical similes just being like brought up every fucking sentence. It's annoying as hell. And this is kind of where I talk more about how like characters can never just do something. Like it's impossible for a character in this book to ever just do something. They cannot just sit in a chair. Like everything is explained in excruciating detail. Like you can't just smile. The smile has to be playful with a secret inside of it that no one could understand, like a bird and an egg. You know, I'm just making shit up now, but like that's what it was. It's like they can't just sit in a chair. The chair has to be scraped back, making a sound like a thunderclap miles away. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's relentless. You are getting bogged down. And this is a thriller. This is supposed to be moving fast. So then we get to chapter 7 titled Wedding Dress Shopping. And because Emily doesn't have any friends and family, she takes Volkova to her final dress fitting because, you know, she wants to have somebody there. And my comment on this is these two should just get together and eat each other out. They're both psycho freaks and Emily is obsessed. Yeah, I really wish that that's the direction that this book had gone. I would have loved for them to have some like awesome, hot, like age gap relationship where they're just like psycho lesbians together, but that's not what happens. It would have been a much more interesting turn, that's for sure. And so Emily is like trying on her dress and Volkova's like, no, this isn't going to do. You need sleeves. And the dressmaker, the dress shop owner is like, no, hold on. I don't have time for that. The wedding is literally like 2 weeks away. Like I can't do that. That's a time crunch. And like, I know like that it's probably because this dress shop lady has like other appointments, other clients and stuff like that. But the thing that happens next is that Volkova's like, oh no, don't worry about it. I have the skill for this. I know how to do this. I can do this. And you're like, oh wow, not only are you an expert in poisons, but you're a fantastic, like world renowned fucking seamstress as well. How interesting. So they take the dress home and Volkova takes it and Emily's like gardening for a couple hours. And then when she comes back inside, Volkova has hung the dress on the door with a note that doesn't really matter. It's just like, oh, all gardens are beautiful if you prune them or whatever, some crap like that. And the dress is ready. The dress is ready. The dress has sleeves. Within a couple hours, Volkova had it ready. She didn't have Emily there to like take her measurements or anything like that. It's literally like within a few hours, this dress is ready. So like the professional dress maker and alter and whatever couldn't do this within a couple of weeks, but Volkova had brand new sleeves completely sewed on perfectly seamless. within a couple of hours. Like, you could have even had her return, like Volkova return the dress to Emily the next day so that the timeline is just somewhat plausible. Anyway, yeah. Now here's where the book really starts to get terrible. We get to chapter 8 titled Silhouette of Order. And Emily is thinking to herself, she's like, oh my God, like, because she had poison on her fingers when she went to go visit Matt at the automotive store back in chapter 4, and he clocked it. He was like, oh, isn't that stain that comes from this very specific flower? And it's like, why would you even have any knowledge of that? Anyway, we're moving on. That was 4 chapters ago. So she, of course, is like paranoid that he's like on to her. So what she does is she's thinking to herself, she's like, I need an alibi. I need to have a good reason as to why I'm dealing with poisonous plants. So she goes online and signs up for a botany class that's being hosted in a nursery about poisonous plants. That is what the whole class is about. It is focusing on poisonous plants. She signs up online. Talk about a paper trail, but listen, that's besides the point. So she attends this botany class and she's asking questions, and she makes up this lie that she is doing a genealogy project and she found one of her great grandmother's like notebooks, journals, whatever, and that it referred to something called widow's tea. And so the botany teacher is like eyeing her up and down. She's like, oh, I see you. Like, oh, okay. So she's like, hey, if you're really interested in learning more about this, I know the professor over at the university who is actually specializes in folk medicine and specializes specifically in poisonous plants of folk medicine. So here's her card. And Emily's like, girl, no way. Thank you so much. That's so crazy. That's how convenient. And so she goes and she visits this professor at the university. Remember, she signs in at the university security desk using her full government legal name, bro. Okay. So she goes and she meets with this professor, and this professor is like, wow, you're doing this genealogy project? How interesting. How fantastic. Actually, are you interested in this very specific, very rare poison that I'm working on? Would you be interested in that?
You used me like you used Frank. And I knew it was only a matter of time before you tried to poison me too. So that's why that shot I took wasn't vodka. It was bleach.
What?
The universal poison antidote.
And Emily's like, actually, yeah, I think I really would. That's how nice of you. Like, that's so interesting. And so the professor is like, okay, and your name is Emily Bird, and this is your address, and this is like this because this is all the information that I'm getting from the sign-in desk downstairs. And Emily's like, yep, that's me. That's me. If a detective decided to do even 3 crumbs worth of investigating, there is so much circumstantial evidence that is pointing to the fact that this woman has been plotting to murder her fiance for a while. But moving beyond that, so she's tossing and turning all night, right? She's so excited about this, about receiving this very special poison from the professor of the university, and she's like, she can't sleep. So she wakes up in the morning, in the wee hours of the morning, and she goes to her mailbox, and whoop, there it is. It's in a package without a return address. It has no return address. And Emily's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe how amazing it is. She got mail delivered to her on a Sunday. Fucking overnighted that shit and had it delivered on a Sunday of all times.
Or, to save on postage, I'll just poison him with this.
And she said, and the way I know it's a Sunday is because she says Sunday had the weight of a bruise. Bruises don't weigh anything. They don't have weight. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. This is nonsense. This means nothing. So, of course, Emily's like, oh my God, I can't take this package back home. She says, I couldn't bring the package back home just yet. Too many eyes, too many questions. It's literally just Remy. And you have made a point to discuss how unobservant this man is unless it is something that directly impacts his life. So, I don't know, too many eyes, too many, who? Who are you talking about? So she decides, instead of going into the privacy of her own private residence, she says, let me walk to this public park that's close by on a Sunday goddamn morning, because that's going to be more private. And she opens up this package, this vial of poison, right? And my comment is, wow, all of these women just handing her poison. Who knew it was so easy? Oh, by the way, the professor's name is Volkov. Her neighbor's name is Ms. Volkova, and the professor is Professor Volkov. Now, I'm going to explain why I think that happens a little bit later on, but for right now, that's what you need to know. So she goes to this public park and is opening, her hands are trembling, she's freaking out. She opens this vial, this package that has a vial of poison, and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it, I'm so excited. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, guess who shows up? Matt. He's holding a cup of coffee and has sunglasses on his head. And he's like, hey, Emily, what are you doing? And she's like, nothing, not me. Oh, what? Yeah, that's not fucking suspicious at all. That's not suspicious. Not suspicious at all. You totally kept that cool, girl. And he's like, okay. He's like, do you want to go get a croissant? I'm on my way to the bakery. She's like, no, I'm fine. Thank you. So then she leaves the park, walks home, and whoop, all of a sudden it's night. It's nighttime. We have this random ass huge time jump in this chapter where she wakes up Sunday morning, walks to the park that is theoretically very close to her house. And then all of a sudden, by the time she walks out, and you're like, oh, maybe it's like this like memory gap thing. No. The author just forgot that it was literally the daytime. And like all of a sudden she gets home, it's nighttime, and Remy is sleeping. And I had to reread that a couple times to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind, because I was like, did I get that wrong? No, I didn't get that wrong. Oh my God, is that a pit stain? Jesus, don't look at that. But yeah, it was just a stupid time jump, an inconsistency, something that was just overlooked. And it was very frustrating and disorienting to read. So she gets home and she sees that Remy has actually gotten some mail, and that one of these pieces of mail is an envelope from some type of medical clinic that he went to. So she opens it and she says, I slid a butter knife under the flap and lifted it cleanly, the way you lift a bead off a string when you know it will roll. The way you lift a bead off a string when you know it will roll? What the fuck does that mean?
No! God, please, no! No!
I'm having flashbacks. I refuse to believe that a human being wrote a book this bad. I refuse to believe that. So apparently Matt made Remy go to the doctor because Matt has been very suspicious for, I don't know, some time. And he suspects that Emily has like Munchausen by proxy, and because that is the term that is used on the medical paperwork, like suspected Munchausen by proxy by caregiver or something like that. And it's like, that is a very heavy accusation to make against someone, especially when you have literally no proof, because Matt had wanted Remy to get toxicology blood work done, and the medical facility that they went to didn't have the means of doing that, but it was noted in the actual paperwork. And so we're sitting here as readers and we're like, what the hell is going on? Like, if somebody is suspecting that they're being poisoned and you're like, oh yeah, our facility doesn't do that, then recommend a facility that does. You're writing the words Munchausen by proxy down. That is a serious accusation. And if you're not going to follow up on that or provide any documentation that you actually did recommend that a follow-up was done, then I don't know what the hell we're doing here. So of course, Emily reads this and she's freaking the fuck out. She's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they're onto me. Okay, I'm making a promise to myself right now. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore. No more tests, no more trials, no more experiments. Like, I can't do that. So chapter 9 is titled Date Night. And in the beginning of this chapter, she is still stressing the fuck out about the fact that Remy went to get tests done. So she decides to make him a Cobb salad, which I guess is his favorite salad or something like that. And she says, so I opened the fridge and pulled a mixture of ingredients that weren't spoiled or unpackaged onto the counter. Why would a control freak have spoiled food in her refrigerator? We have spent the entire book talking about what a controlling, organized, meticulous character Emily is. Why on earth would someone like that have spoiled food? Also, spoiled or unpackaged, I'm not sure what that means. Like, unpackaged, like, what are you talking about? Like, fresh ingredients, like, are not unpacked? I don't know. This made no sense. Like, it just didn't make any sense for her character, and it just didn't make any sense as a sentence. So a continuation of her making the Cobb salad, she says, my hands moved automatically, cracking shells, slicing the pieces even, dicing red onion into neat cubes that stained the cutting board. The smell rose, sharp and clean, almost medicinal. What a fucking weird correlation to draw for the scent of an onion. Almost medicinal? In what way? In what way would the smell of an onion be medicinal? Like, I could think of like a million other ways to describe the scent of an onion, and medicinal is like not even on the list. Wow, I mean, really, just so strange. Like, the smell rose, it was sharp, almost medicinal. It was sharp, almost medicinal. Right. You get what I'm saying, right? Like, you understand what I'm talking about, how strange the writing for this book is, nonsensical. So she's still thinking about the package that she received as a vial of poison from the Professor Volkov, remember that. And she's talking about how there's no evidence that leads back to her. She says, but there was no return address on the package, no evidence beyond what lived in the soil of Miss Volkova's garden. Girl, you literally digitally using your home IP address signed up for a botany class that it was specifically about poisonous plants. You were then asking weird ass questions and like using a very unique ruse talking about your genealogy project, of which this botany teacher for the class would absolutely remember you, would remember giving you, if she's interviewed by the cops, she would remember giving you a business card to the professor at the university, of which they would follow up and find that you legally, using your government fucking name, signed into the security desk to go visit this professor of poison. Like, there is absolutely a mountain of evidence leading right back to you, girl, not to mention the fact that you have a poisonous flower planted on your windowsill. All the cops gotta do is walk in. Anyway, so yeah, inconsistent, I don't know what kind of half-assed thought process this observant, analytical, smart character has going on, but it's all nonsense. She's sitting at her table now and she's having these like thoughts about about the package and about whether there's like anything that can lead back to her and all this other stuff. She's like kind of zoning out. And then all of a sudden she hears the keys jingling. She hears the car doors closing and she realizes that Matt and Remy are home. So she jumps up and the first thing she does is she goes to the counter and she starts stirring lemon in a jug of water, you know, trying to act nonchalant. She says she's starting her performance. And this is after she's been sitting at the table for an undetermined amount of time, like thinking to herself. So Remy runs upstairs to get something and Matt like comes into the kitchen and like, remember, she's literally stirring the lemon water. And now all of a sudden there's a notebook in her hand and she's like trying to shove it under a stack of wedding magazines. And you're like, what are you talking about? What notebook? What notebook? You were not talking about a notebook at all. You're just like, and she's like worried that he might have seen her, but she's like, no, I'm pretty sure he didn't catch it. Catch what? Dude, you were literally stirring lemons in your water. Like, where did this notebook even come from? And this is another example of this like weird kind of almost like a time jump situation where it's like two scenes that were written and like mashed together, and the author forgot that she had the character doing something and wanted her to be doing something else. And instead of writing a natural series of events that would have led her to getting to a notebook and hiding it, we literally go from she's stirring lemon to, oh my God, now she's hiding her notebook under a stack of magazines. Like, nonsense. So Matt ends up leaving. Remy comes back downstairs. He's like, oh, where'd Matt go? And she's like, oh, he had to go somewhere. He had to leave. He's like, oh, what a bummer, right? And so he says, he's like, you know, I've been thinking, like, I was wondering, like, what would you think about maybe changing the DJ for our wedding to one of my dad's friends? And she kind of looks at him. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? She doesn't say that. She says it a lot nicer. She's much more composed in this scene than you would expect. But she's like, no, I don't think so. And it's like, yeah, girl, you're right. Honestly, like I said, this is the first human moment that I actually related to in this book. I was like, yeah, you don't approach a type A personality a week and a half before your wedding talking about changing a major vendor whose act is directly tied to other vendors. Like, she had the DJ set like coincide with like certain placements or dances or like whatever. And she's like, dude, I spent months researching. I spent months calling, paying deposits, like all this stuff. And you're talking about changing this major vendor very last minute. Are you stupid? She doesn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. And he's like just so casual about this. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I just thought I was trying to help you out because I know you've been so stressed with the wedding planning. And she's like, how would that at all relieve any stress for me? Like, what are you talking about? So yeah, I agree with her. I'd be pissed as well. So she goes to like start washing the dishes. You know, she's like fuming, she's heated, and he's apologizing and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden she's standing in front of a mirror getting dressed to go on a date. And you're like, literally in the next sentence. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to read this to you. It says, she's washing the dishes. Remy approached me, slipping his arms around my waist, kissing my neck. I love you, Emily. I see how hard you work. He had no idea. Remy continued apologizing for trying to switch the DJ, sprinkling me with nauseating gestures, kisses on the neck, expensive gifts I didn't need, and reassurance I wasn't seeking. Wear something nice, he said, kissing my forehead like he was about to board a plane. I stood in front of the mirror longer than I needed to. That is the chapter, that is the paragraph. She's washing dishes. He's apologizing for trying to change the DJ. And all of a sudden he's telling her to wear something nice and she's standing in front of a mirror getting ready. Also, can we please talk about the simile of, oh my God, of him kissing her forehead like he was about to board a plane? What the fuck are we talking about? He kissed my forehead like he was boarding a plane? My dogs are hearing me get hyped and they're both like look at this. You see these fuckers? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so needless to say, this was ridiculous. So anyway, so he tells her to wear something nice. She's getting dressed. She's wearing like a sundress, blah, blah, blah. And they're getting ready to go out on a date. And the quote is Denver, their dog. They have a dog. Denver, their dog. So Denver watched us from the window, paused on the sill like a child seeing his parents off to prom. I'm sorry, what age do you go to prom? What age are you going to prom? Why would a child ever be seeing their parents off to prom?
Abby. See bitches on the dance floor.
We drove with the windows down. I reached over and tucked one behind his ear, and he gave me that crooked grin that still made me feel 16. Tucked one what? You tucked one what behind his ear? I tucked one behind his ear? What did you tuck? What are we talking? So yeah, and then the other thing I have an issue with is the fact that, Crooked Grin that still made me feel 16. It's like, this is literally, we're like halfway through the book at this point, and this is the first time in the entire book where she is not talking about either poisoning and killing this man or how annoying he is.
Oh, right. The poison for Cusco. The poison chosen specially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
This is like so uncharacteristic of her character for her to actually discuss, like feeling like giddy and whatever else. And it's like, where is this coming from? Like, okay, fine, you're going on a date. Like maybe you're rekindling the spark that you used to have. And she kind of does say that, like, they go on this date and they're having a really, really great time. They're laughing and hooting and hollering and they're just like keying. Okay. So after their dinner reservation, they're like walking by the water or whatever. And they decide to go get ice cream at this like ice cream stand. And as they're walking, all of a sudden Remy's like, okay, maybe we should go home now. Like maybe we should stop. And she's like, what? Like, no way. Like, I'm actually kind of having fun. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, we should go. And she's like, what's happening? And all of a sudden this man runs up on them and he's like, hey, Remy man, hey, thanks for the gig, bro. This is going to be the best wedding ever. I found your playlist on Spotify. Yeah, we're going to have a good time. And then he just runs off and Remy's just standing there looking like a dildo. And Emily is like, what the fuck are you talking about? What? She actually doesn't say anything. She's completely silent. And that's how you know it's bad. And this is actually one of the moments in the book where I was like, if she killed him right in this moment, I actually could see it. Like, would I do that? Not necessarily, but I could see why her character losing this like sense and feeling of control would probably just like lash out. But no, that's not what happens. So they get home and she is pissed. She's like, I have spent months organizing this wedding. I have spent so much time and so much energy. And so she just takes her thick ass wedding planner that is like color coded, highlighted, tabbed, and organized. And she just dumps it in the sink full of water and just like lets it rot in there. And he goes upstairs and just disappears. He's like, okay, like he's seeing like how pissed she is. He's like, no, I'm not dealing with that. So he goes upstairs for like 20 minutes, comes back down and is like, do you want to talk about it? And she's like, no, not really. And he's like, okay. And then he just like goes back upstairs. I feel like it's one of the most human interactions in their relationship, not even up until this point in the book, but throughout the entire book. And frankly, like I would have said the same shit. If he came downstairs and was like, do you want to talk about it? I would have been like, the only thing I want to talk about is whether or not you just spent the last 20 minutes upstairs calling that DJ to tell him he ain't fucking DJing for us. Is that what you did? No? Okay, then fuck off. That's what I would have said personally, but she's not me. She just like kept it to herself. So the issue with this for me was like I just said, it was a human moment, but the problem was that this did not make Emily more likable for me. This did not make her characterization like more understandable for me. What happened was that it made Remy unlikable to me. So now I don't care what happens to him. I don't care what happens to her. I don't care what happens to either of them in this book because I don't like either of them. And that is a huge problem when you're writing a book for your audience to try to somewhat relate to these characters. Making them completely unlikable, probably a bad move. So then we get to chapter 10 titled Knock Knock, Who's There? And this is actually the chapter where I was like, wait, hold on, is she OCD coded? Because she is stressed out about the change in the DJ. She is stressed out about like just the wedding planning, but also about her plan to murder her fiance and all this stuff. So she is like running around the house. She is vacuuming the same spot like 3 times under 20 minutes. She is setting the toaster dial to the same setting over and over again 5 times in a row. Like she is like legitimately just like losing her mind. She's like turning the door handle, making sure she locked it like repeatedly. So this was very OCD coded in my mind. And like I said, I actually don't have an issue with that. I feel like it would make a lot of sense for her character. So anyway, so moving on, this is where the major inconsistency happens because she is referring to, again, all of the poison that she has accumulated and used in the last however much time. And she says that the vial of poison that she had hidden in her basement, remember that she got from the package from the professor, was actually given to her by Ms. Volkova. So what I think happened was that the author had it so that Ms. Volkova was actually giving Emily all of this poison over and over and over again throughout the entire book and realized that maybe that was a bit unrealistic or there were some logistic reasons why that was not plausible. So what she did was she created and manufactured this entirely new character, this professor at the university, and decided to give her this vial of poison. And so did like a search and replace and maybe forgot to replace this one. And I think that explains a lot of why their names are so similar, Volkova and Volkov. Like I feel like literally should have just used literally any other name. Any other name at all would have been fine for the professor, but no. So yeah, this was a huge inconsistency. This was one of those things where like this was just overlooked and I didn't like that. So yeah, so she is like, she had promised herself, remember after Remy's test results, she had promised herself that she was not going to do any more tests, any more poisonings. But because she's so stressed about everything happening, she's like, no, maybe just a little bit, maybe just a little bit.
What kind of poison did you use?
Dwight, I didn't poison you. I was kidding.
So she goes and reaches into the pantry and gets this poison. So she ends up poisoning Remy. And this time the onset is really quick. She's like giddy with how like sick this man is getting. And so he goes upstairs to rest for a little while and he falls asleep and she's like laying next to him listening to his breathing, which she does repeatedly throughout this book. It's unsettling at best. So she hears the doorbell ring. She goes downstairs. Turns out it's Matt. And he's like, hey, where's Remy? And she's like, oh, he's upstairs catching a shower. What's up?
Did you just say we just stepped out of the shower?
I said he.
He's like, he missed poker night. That's so unlike him. He didn't even text me to let me know he was going to miss it. She's like, oh yeah, he's tired from working at the hospital. He had a long day doing surgery, blah, 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 whatever. And he's like, he doesn't believe her, obviously. He thinks that she's covering, which she absolutely is. Dude is like poisoned upstairs, laying in bed, like on the verge of fucking death. So of course, he's like kind of getting like not aggressive with her, but he's like, I don't believe you, basically. So Volkova sees all this. It's the middle of the, it's not the middle of the night. It's 8 p.m. And Volkova, who's outside gardening at 8 p.m. for some reason, runs over with a thick ass spade in her hand and is like, is there a problem here? And Emily's like, no, it's cool. Matt doesn't even say a word. He just looks at Volkova, spits on the porch and walks off. So Emily like freaks out. She's super nervous. She shuts the door, runs upstairs, looks outside the window and sees Volkova leaning over, pulls a Q-tip out of fucking, I don't know where, probably her asshole, and swabs up Matt's DNA, swabs up his spit that he just spit on the porch. And you're like, what the hell? Where did this lady get a Q-tip from? So naturally you're thinking to yourself, you're like, oh, maybe this means something. Like maybe something's going to happen. She's collecting DNA evidence. Maybe she's going to plant it somewhere and like frame him for Remy's murder or something. Nope, we never hear about it again. Never hear about it again. Now, this is a trilogy, but I'm hard pressed to believe that the author had enough insight to remember this detail that she included in the book, and I don't think anything is actually going to come from this Q-tip. I just think it was a weird thing to include. It's never mentioned again, never expanded on, nothing. There's a lot of that in this book. Like I said, we never meet the botany teacher again. We never meet the professor at the university again. These are just all side characters that are not fleshed out, not interesting, and just placed to keep the story convenient and moving in a very uninteresting and nonsensical direction anyway. Her mother potentially poisoned her dad. Emily's mother potentially poisoned her dad. And you're led to believe that the reason why she's doing all this is because she wants to be like her mama. And that's why she holds the status of widow to such a high degree in her mind, to like such a high pedestal, is because her mother was a widow and got a bunch of attention, I guess. I don't know. Now, this is where I also note that there's so much filler, so much repetition of the same feelings, thoughts, and actions. It's like the same chapter being written over and over and over and over again. We're 50% of the way through, and I feel like the suspense that is trying to be built is just making this book drag. Like there is no suspense in this thriller whatsoever. So Remy, the night before, like before he got poisoned, he had brought up the idea of going to therapy, and Emily was like, haha, no. And he's like, no, but I think we should, just like a check-in before we get married.
Oh, we had couples therapy.
No shame in that. Get it all out in the open.
And we have homework.
Yes, we are supposed to look for every chance to acknowledge and appreciate each other's sacrifices, because I need to appreciate what Pam's been doing to run the house while I'm in Philly.
And we're also supposed to speak our truths, because if I had spoken my truth earlier about not wanting to move to Philly, then maybe we wouldn't have had this opportunity for couples therapy.
Oh, we're supposed to call everything we don't want to do opportunities.
So they go to therapy. Therapy doesn't go well. The therapist is kind of like clocking Emily pretty like conveniently, and Emily's like all paranoid about this. And she has this habit of assuming other people's thoughts and intentions based off of perceived like body language and facial expression. And it's a very irritating thing to read because one, nothing ever comes from it. Like it never amounts to anything. It is never confirmed or denied that she was correct in her assessment or that she wasn't. It doesn't add any intensity to her character. It doesn't add any tension to the story. It's just a freaking annoying thing that this character does. So Volkova has basically become an accomplice at this point. She has flat out told Emily how to poison her fiance. So I thought that was just like really strange. I'm like, why is Volkova so invested in Emily following through on this? I'm not sure. So Remy apologizes about changing the DJ, and he does say something about how he knows that she's been stressed and, with everything with the wedding planning and, the your mom stuff. And it's such a throwaway comment because remember, any backstory that we're getting is like a ghost, a wisp of an idea of what we're trying to put together. It is not clarified. It is not expanded on. It is not flat out even said. It is all things that as the reader we're supposed to, I guess, come to our own conclusions about, but in a way that's done without offering up any significant and valuable information to us. It's just like, hey, make your own assessment, I guess, but not in a fun, oh, you're smart enough to do this way, in a way that's like, I actually just don't feel like explaining what the hell is going on. So yeah, this your mom stuff. never expanded on, never. And Emily doesn't even comment about what he just said. We all just like glide right past it. And I'm like, what mom stuff? Like, what are you talking about? So anyway, I had said, I hope this gets answered before the end of the book. No, it doesn't. Does not. Now, the therapist texts Remy and says that she wants to see him alone, one-on-one, and he goes and he tells Emily this, and Emily's like, absolutely not. She's just trying to hit on you. She just wants to get in your pants. Like, don't do it. And he's a little bit skeptical about this, like why she's so adamant about him not going. But ultimately, he ends up agreeing with her. And the thing about this is like, her character is so like Emily's character is so unlikable that like her motivations, her moving through this book was just really irritating to read. I am taking psychic damage from this book. Like, you don't understand how miserable of an experience it was to read this. So then we get to chapter 12 titled This Is It, and Remy and Emily are showing up to the wedding venue. This is the night before the actual wedding, and we finally get a bit of backstory about her psycho mom who used to experiment on Emily, used to experiment on neighbors and family pets, and there was a specific pet goldfish that Emily had that her mom starved for a week just to see if it would survive, just to see what would happen. And a quote from her mother is, "The weak didn't deserve to stay." And that was Emily's mom's mentality. So you can understand why at this point Emily has turned out to be the way that she is. My issue with this is not even that it was mentioned. It was just that I wish we had been getting this from the beginning of the book. I wish that we had been getting information about her mother throughout the book that gave us like little puzzle pieces that we were able to collect and put together and see this picture of Emily as a child that would have explained a lot more about why she is the way that she is. Instead, we just get Emily cycling through the same thoughts, the same anxieties over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in every single chapter. Nothing interesting. It's not done in a way where the repetition actually amounts to something in which an idea is being comprehended more or expanded on more. It's just done in a way that's like, I don't think the author knows how to write in-depth characters. They're all flat. They're all one-dimensional. Here's just an example of a repetition issue. It's literally the same sentiment being explained in relatively like almost the exact same phrasing within the same paragraph. So it says, I would be the plant in full bloom, roots hidden, petals open, beautiful enough to distract from the poison waiting underneath. The wedding would be the culmination of everything I'd studied, the practical examination that would demonstrate whether I'd truly mastered the subject matter or had only succeeded in convincing myself that I understood principles I couldn't actually apply. And then literally the next page or something, she's like, instead, it felt like graduation, the bloom, after months of careful cultivation, petals wide, roots deep, ready to prove whether I had truly mastered what I've been growing toward all along. So it's the same idea of using her and her education and her growth over the period of this book as a metaphor for a flower blooming, roots sinking in deep. And it's like literally within the same page, and it's done twice. And it's like, you just explained this in a long ass run-on sentence like the page before this. I don't know. What are you talking about? You don't have to say this all over again. And this is an issue that is repeated throughout the book, where there's the same sentiment just being repeated over and over again in each chapter, but then again within the same chapter. And this book is only 200 pages long. So like, you got to understand, for you to make a book 200 pages long, drag ass, and feel like I read a 600 page fucking book, that in and of itself is a talent, to be honest with you. So we get to a point where there's an actual like time break in the chapter, like those 3 little stars that proves within the same chapter that time has passed. And I'm like, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? You're telling me you were able to do this the whole time and you just chose not to? We've been having these weird time jumps throughout the whole entire book, and you literally could have just been doing this from the very start. Annoying. They get to the wedding venue, and it's at this old monastery or nunnery or something like that has been transformed into like an inn, a hotel or whatever. And Chuck, who is Remy's father, says Chuck picked up a bag labeled groomsmen gifts as if unsure whether it was fragile or sacred. Are the two mutually exclusive? Does something either have to be fragile or sacred? Dare I say it would make sense for something to be both. Picks up the groomsmen gifts as if unsure whether it was fragile or sacred. Useless writing. Unnecessary. Nonsensical. Then she says something like, she's talking like Remy is like, oh my god, it's finally come, like we're almost there. And so she says, it should have grounded me. Instead, I felt tethered, anchored by him, but with scissors already hidden in my other hand. What is this trying to say? I did not understand this. You should have felt grounded, but instead you feel tethered and anchored. Are these not all synonymous with one another?
So just move past it. All right.
So then they're walking through the inn, they're walking up to their suites, and she's looking at these pictures on the walls of these nuns outside doing various things. And she says, pictures that pressed your voice lower without asking. Pictures that pressed your voice lower without asking. How does a human being come up with writing this bad? It makes me feel very sharp. Anyway. Literally the next note I wrote is, I literally cannot stress how frustrating and unenjoyable this reading experience is. I stand by that. Reading this book This should be a new torture method, to be honest with you. This was nonsense. You want another example? She said, so she leaves the wedding venue. She tells Remy she has to go back home to get something. So she runs back to the house because her and Volkova had made this like agreement that she would go get the final piece of poison that she was going to use on the night of the wedding once she was ready to do this, and Volkova would give it to her. So she goes back to the house, goes to Volkova's, and tries to get the poison. And finally she gets it, and she's like having a moment alone with it. And, you know, she's like vibrating with intensity and anxiety and all this stuff. And she literally says, my nervous system was fully activated. I could taste my teeth. Fuck off. I could taste my teeth. What did it taste like? What did they taste like? Please enlighten us, would you? Your nervous system was so activated that you could taste your teeth? So my next note is, I hope she accidentally poisons herself. That would be hilarious and might actually save this awful book. It would have been funny. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. That doesn't happen. I wish. So chapter 13 titled Wedding Day. The day has arrived. She's getting ready to, you know, walk down the aisle and all this other stuff. And she's like excited. And she lets us know what her plan is. Are you ready? Her plan, take him up to the married suite after their final dance and poison him. The plan that she has spent the last several months plotting out is her murdering him in a private room, just the two of them, no alibi, no nothing. This chick thinks she's smart. She thinks she's a smart person. Remember that. She thinks she's super smart and super cool and super better. She wants her life to be memorable. Yeah, that's her plan. Literally the worst murder plan known to man. Especially because Matt has told her in plain ass English. He says, he's like, if something happens to Remy, I will know that it was you. And yet, this is her plan, is to take him up to their private suite after their final dance and murder him with poison. So anyway, so they're moving through, the wedding is happening, she's walking down the aisle, and she says, Dana's timing lived in my spine. Two things. Who the fuck is Dana? This is literally the first time this character's name is ever mentioned. We never find out, by the way. Dana's timing lived in my spine. The second thing is, what does that mean? What does it mean for someone's timing to live in your spine? So anyway, the ceremony happens, they're at the reception, and she says, servers floated past with champagne flutes and food too delicate to have names. Yeah, what that actually sounds like is you were too fucking lazy to actually look up any kind of hors d'oeuvres that you could have just written as examples. Like, you couldn't have done some fucking salmon puffs? God damn, I hate this movie so much. Yeah, it just sounded like she was too lazy to give any actual examples. Food too delicate to have names? That's not a thing. That means nothing. So after the third mention of Dana, right? The first is Dana's timing lived in my spine. The second is that Dana insisted on biodegradable confetti. And the third is that light, like, glinted off her clipboard. So we're led to believe she's some kind of wedding planner, which kind of like removes all importance of Emily's character and any empathy you might have garnered for her character up until this point when you think about like how harped on it is that she's been planning this wedding for months. Because if she had a wedding planner this whole time, then that kind of nullifies any of the stress she's been experiencing because of it. Just total dog shit. But it doesn't matter because Dana's character never gets explained. We never actually find out if she is a wedding planner because all it is those three mentions within the same, like within a couple paragraphs of each other. This character is brought up 3 times and then never again without any explanation as to who the hell she was. So then we learn that after she succeeds in murdering her husband to be, or her husband now they got married, is that she's going to become infamous by writing a book. So the main character wants to be famous and is seeking attention and validation that she never got by writing a book. Gee, I wonder what that's supposed to mean. I wonder what that's about. Someone seeking attention and validation that they never got by writing a book, wanting to be infamous. Who could ever? So then we get to chapter 14 titled, May I Have This Dance? And Matt is kind of toying with Emily at this point. He gets her on the dance floor. They're doing a dance together. And he's basically like warning her. He's like, I know that you're pulling some shady shit. He doesn't like outright accuse her of trying to poison Remy or anything, but he's like, I've been keeping my eye on you. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, if anything happens to him tonight, he is literally in a hotel full of friends and family. Like, I will know you did it. And so she's like stressing out and she's looking, you know, they're on the dance floor and she looks out and her and Volkova lock eyes, right? They make eye contact. And this is the hawk simile that I was talking about. Are you ready for this? I'm actually about to get really pissed off. It says, her eyes held the same look as Matt's. 2 hawks eyeing the pantry of their earth. I Googled it. I went on to Merriam-Webster. I used the search, the define function in my ebook on Hoopla. And to double check that pantry meant what I thought it meant. Let me read that to you one more fucking time. 2 hawks eyeing the pantry of their earth. Out of all of the things that don't make sense, this makes the not most sense at all. Did that make any sense to you? Probably not, but it made more sense than this goddamn book did. Two hawks eyeing the pantry of their earth? This book makes me feel sharp. Goddamn. This my note on this is in all caps. This doesn't mean anything. What? Doesn't mean anything. A pantry is a place where you store food. Like, okay, whatever. Maybe other people think it makes sense. Maybe I'm just stupid. I doubt that that's the case, but maybe it is. So their dance ends. Emily goes to sit back down with Remy. Volkova starts dancing with Matt. And now up until this point, especially that when they met on the porch the other night, Emily had the suspicion that they were like conspiring with each other against her. As a reader, we're supposed to think there's some merit to this thought process, but there's absolutely not. There's literally no way that this woman, Volkova, who has been making herself an accomplice in Emily's plan this whole time, is conspiring with Matt. There's just no freaking way. So I never believed that. I never thought there was any merit to that. I just thought that Emily was being annoying, and I still feel that way. I stand by that. So Volkova starts dancing with Matt, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, surely this man is smart enough. Like, Volkova is the only guest there that is there for Emily. Everybody else is there for Remy. So surely he's smart enough to know that if Emily is plotting anything, the chances of this woman who ran up on him with a fucking gardening spade the other night might be in cahoots with her, right? You would think that he's like smart enough to know because he's so observant. Nope. Some time passes. Matt and Volkova leave the dance hall. They leave the wedding hall. And Emily's like, okay, I'm gonna go get into my other dress, which is a pretty common thing. I'm pretty sure like brides get married in their wedding gowns, but then at some point in the night they change into like a more comfortable garment. At least that's how the weddings that I've been to have been. So she goes upstairs and she sees Matt coming out of the marital suite, and he's exiting. He's like walking to another bank of elevators. So she's like walking this way and he's like out and walking that way. So he doesn't see her. He doesn't see that she sees him coming out of their marital suite. So chapter 15 titled Good Night. She is stressed out. She goes back downstairs like paranoid that Matt has somehow messed up her plan. And Remy is like, hey, you seem tired. Like, do you want to just go upstairs? We can call it a night. It's our wedding. We can do whatever we want. She's like, oh, okay. So they go upstairs and she fixes him the tea anyway. She like rationalizes to herself that whatever like may have happened, but probably not. And so she follows through and poisons his tea. Oh, this is more repetitive phrasing. So it is, his breathing evened out faster than I expected. Not asleep, not yet, but the shift was there. And then she writes, his breath evened out so quickly it startled me. Not sleep, not yet, just the kind of surrender people only give when they're certain the person beside them will keep them safe. So the thing that is repeated is his breathing evened out faster than I expected. Not asleep, not yet. His breathing evened out so quickly it startled me. Not sleep, not yet. Mind you, between these two sentences, there's like 3 M dashes, okay? M dashes are abundant in this novel. I did the search function. There were 500. This book is about 220 pages. So a lot of M dashes. So yeah, so the chapter ends basically with her falling asleep next to him and kind of like excited that in the morning she's going to wake up next to a corpse. So chapter 16 titled Dream, this chapter was only 2 pages and it is essentially her having this very surreal dream where she is attending, I guess, Remy's funeral. She's dressed all in black. She has a black veil. And then all of a sudden she's like choking on soil or something. And she's like losing her widow's crown. And that's the dream. It's literally 2 pages. So then we move on to chapter 17 titled Soil on My Tongue. And she wakes up in the morning and Remy is very still. He is like not moving at all. And she's like giddy. She's excited. And then he starts stirring and he wakes up and he's like feeling super refreshed. And he's like, wow, that's like the best sleep I've ever gotten in my life. And she is pissed. She is very frustrated that she has failed in her attempt to murder her husband. And so she is like rationalizing to herself how that could have possibly happened. And for some reason, the idea of her failing outright is not as terrible as the idea of her having subconsciously sabotaged herself, which is what she thinks is what happened. She's trying to figure out why it didn't work. And so she is just extremely upset that this man is still alive. So she ends up going downstairs and like she's getting in the elevator as she's going down because I guess she has plans with the bridesmaids. And as she's going down, she's like, you know what? It's fine. I failed this time, but I'm not going to fail again. I'm not going to fail next time. I'll do it. I'll make it happen. So she sees this failure as just something to build off of, something to get right next time. So she gets downstairs and runs into the bridesmaids, which are Remy's cousins. And so chapter 18 titled Cousins, she is going on like the whole day is spent them having like brunch and going shopping and all this stuff. And as they're loading up in the SUV to get to wherever they're going, they see Matt holding 2 cups of coffee. He's back on his way back to the hotel. So she's like kind of annoyed. She's like, oh, I don't want to see this fucker either. So they spend the day eating brunch. They're like doing stuff. And there's a moment in the day where they're sitting and they're eating. And one of the cousins, I think it was Brooke, again, characters that we just get introduced to last minute, just very convenient to drop information for our main character and literally serve no other purpose than this, are not fully fleshed out, are not examined, are not explored at all, just there to be convenient. And they tell Emily that, the reason why Remy had actually switched the DJ was because Remy's father, Chuck, was having financial problems. Now, this part of the book, you would like, out of everything that should have been explained, this was like one of the things that I felt was so poorly explained. I did not understand the relevance of any of this information. Like, even as it is pertaining to the situation of them replacing the DJ, I did not understand what Chuck's financial troubles had anything to do with the DJ that they were going to be using for their wedding. But something happened there. What I gathered, what I understood, and this could totally be incorrect because this was explained very poorly, is that that because Chuck was having financial problems, I'm assuming maybe he was paying for the wedding, and so there was some kind of miscommunication with the original DJ that they had hired, or some kind of mispayment, and the DJ got pissed and decided that they didn't want to do the event anymore or something like that. So as a favor, Remy hired on one of Chuck's dad's friends to be the DJ. Now, again, I'm not, because the cousin also mentions that because Chuck is having financial problems, that Remy has been helping and financially supporting his father in some instances. So it's like, if Remy is the financially secure one that is helping out his dad, why would the dad be paying for the wedding? And therefore, if he wasn't paying for the wedding, why would he even care who the fuck the DJ is? Didn't make sense. Doesn't matter. All this moment was supposed to do was supposed to help us kind of humanize and empathize with Remy as to why he ended up switching the DJ, and kind of giving us like a tangible, understandable reason why that happened. And Emily doesn't give a shit. She's literally like, that kind of doesn't really change anything in my mind. Like, she's thinking that to herself. So she is then thinking to herself in this chapter, she's like, even after everything, like, I think I am a good person. Like, I think at the end of the day, I am a good person. And, I've done the things that I've done, but like, I literally can't handle the alternative. Like, if I'm not a good person, then I don't know what that means about me. And I'm like, I know what that means about you. You're not a good person. You literally tried to murder a man just so that you could be a widow. You're a fucking weirdo. I know what it means. We are almost done. We have 2 chapters left. They're really short too. So chapter 19 is titled Ambulance.
We're hoping this will give us the key to save the story.
Yeah, I'm gonna need an ambulance.
And you can kind of guess where this is going, right? So I have one note for this chapter, and it says, this chapter is dragging ass, with like a million S's. This is supposed to be the climax of the story, and instead we're getting the same 3 introspections that we've gotten from every chapter so far in the book, way to destroy any ghost of a concept of tension that could have been built. The big reveal that Remy was dead was so buried under bullshit.
He's dead!
It was buried under nothing. This was not a big reveal moment. This was like a casual pass by, because the women get back after their brunch or whatever. They get back to the hotel, and there are sirens, there is their ambulance, there's police tape, and they're not allowed back inside of the hotel. The officers are like, you're going to have to wait outside. So they're waiting outside, and about an hour goes by before anybody gets any kind of information. And all of a sudden, one of the cousins gets a text, and she looks up to Emily. She's like, oh my God, Em, it was Remy. And Emily is like stoked. She's like, oh yeah, time to put on my performance, my acting skills. So she's like trying to balance, and this is where the tension really just got lost, because the whole part of this chapter is the author explaining to us how she's trying to balance her performance so that it's believable but not too dramatic, because her mother wouldn't approve of her being too dramatic, And it's like, wow, this is nothing. This means nothing to me. I don't care. I knew Remy was going to die because there was so much plot armor for this main character that there was never I was hoping that things weren't going to work out for her. But unfortunately, I knew with how dog shit this book was that unfortunately things were going to work out for her. So then as she's like having this dramatic moment where she's like fake cry, she has a single tear that comes down her cheek. And as that's happening, a woman runs up and is trying to get into the hotel. And the cop is like, ma'am, I can't let you in. She's like, but that's my son. It's my son. And Emily turns around and she's like, wait, that's not Remy's mom. Who is that? That woman looks familiar. Oh, wait, it's Matt's mom. And then the chapter ends. And
Please, no! 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 No!
then we get to chapter 20 titled The End. And we learned that both Remy and Matt died side by side, right next to each other, supposedly of heart attacks. And my note on this is shit ending. Stand by that. Yeah, it was pretty dog shit. Oh wow, the only person that was even at all mildly suspicious of Emily also dies conveniently by a heart attack. So we end up learning in this wrap-up chapter that Volkova had actually killed Matt. We don't know how, we don't know when, we don't know anything. No details at all are disclosed. And frankly, that was very frustrating, because it's like, okay, if you're gonna give me the shit-ass ending, please at least explain how it happened. But no, we don't get that. And we also learned that it was Volkova that had come into Emily's marital suite and switched the poison. She had kind of altered it so that it would have a delayed reaction, so that Emily would actually have an alibi when she was out and about with the girls. That is when Remy actually died. So So that's how that happened. And so technically Emily did administer the poison that killed him, but she just didn't get that satisfying moment. So she's kind of like annoyed with Volkova. She's like, I really wish you hadn't stolen that moment from me, but thank you for helping me out anyway.
I swallowed apple seeds.
So what?
Are they poisonous?
Are you kidding me, dude? They're extremely poisonous.
Absolutely not poisonous.
Should I make myself throw up?
I would throw up now. Oh, God damn it. Apple seeds, man, that's no good.
And so the end of this book is literally Volkova and Emily pursuing a mentor-mentee relationship and dynamic. And Volkova's like, I will teach you if you're willing to learn, and blah, 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 blah. And that's how this book ends. Did you hate it? I did.
Great practical joke, Jim.
It made no sense. Unlikable flat characters. I mean, beyond flat, like just beyond one-dimensional. They didn't even have one dimension. They were nothing. Now, here's my thing. Emily's backstory about her mother having Munchausen by proxy, again, we're led to assume this, was such an interesting thing that never got really explored in this book. Now, it's entirely possible that the author intends to explore this background in the future books of the trilogy. But the problem is that when you're writing a trilogy, you need to make sure that the first book is interesting enough that people are going to want to continue to read on to see what happens. Now, let me go ahead and give you a rundown really quick of how I would have written this and what my thoughts on this or what it should have been. So personally, the way that I would have made this happen was that in the first book, I would have had it so that Emily has been living a relatively normal life. She had the same shitty childhood, the same terrible psychotic mother who used to do these horrible experiments on her just for fun and have Munchausen by proxy and all this other stuff. But I would have expanded on that. I would have given more flashbacks, more examples, and I would have had it so that, because as far as we know, even in this book, like Emily's mother is still alive. So what I would have had is maybe Emily's mother have some kind of accident, some kind of, break her leg or something like that, and she can no longer live on her own for the time being. So she comes to live with Emily and Remy in their house for the weeks leading up to the wedding. So there is some like sinister energy going on. Miss Volkova, who is a very observant woman, even in this book, she sees this dynamic happening between Emily and her mother. Her mother is trying to continue these experiments and kind of torture Emily, but Emily is no longer a child, right? She is an adult now. And the fact that her mother is living with her is like bringing up all these terrible traumatic memories. And you combine that with her type A personality, and what you get is these psychopathic tendencies that she's had buried underneath kind of coming to the surface. And so Emily starts conducting her own experiments on her mother, starts poisoning her because her mother is, unable to get around, is relying on Emily as her caretaker. And so Emily kind of reverses the roles and she starts doing the same kind of evil things to her mother. And Volkova is noticing this, and Volkova is helping her out because she wants to help Emily get her lick back. Remy is totally unaware, totally maybe we get some of their relationship being built and laying the foundation for what kind of relationship they have in this book. So then by the end of the book, on the night of her wedding, her mother dies, right? Volkova and Emily make this happen, and she gets that sympathy that she wants. She gets that level of unforgettableness that she wants. And that is how the first book ends. And then the second book would open up to Volkova and Emily having a really good relationship and dynamic. And Emily now, after opening the floodgates of these psychopathic tendencies, is starting to Remy is starting to grate on her nerves. And so she's continuing these experiments on Remy, and she's feeling that kind of validation, that sense of control. And the whole book is kind of following along that while she's strengthening her relationship with Miss Volkova. Maybe we're learning more about Miss Volkova and her background as well. And so the end of the second book is Remy starting to kind of get paranoid that Emily is poisoning him. He takes it to Matt. Matt, who has also been observing some strange behaviors, is like, yeah, dude, I think maybe we should do something about this. But they never get a chance because by the end of the second book, Emily and Volkova have murdered Remy as well. And now Matt knows for sure that Emily was doing this, but he doesn't have any physical evidence. So the third book is really opening up to Matt trying to collect physical evidence to prove that Emily murdered Remy, but also maybe murdered her mother. And Volkova and Emily can't have this. So pretty much halfway through the third book, they murder and succeed at murdering Matt. And because of this, now Emily is starting to get paranoid herself. She's starting to really worry. She's starting to get concerned that maybe she's becoming a kind of person that she never wanted to be, and that she's really turning into her mother, and she never wanted that for herself. And this waffling is kind of causing Volkova to second guess mentoring this young woman. And so instead, now Volkova and Emily are having this feud, this major face off. And the end of the third book ends with a culmination of just Volkova and Emily facing off to the death. Who knows which one would win? I don't know. It depends on how the book would be written. But if I was going to write this as a trilogy, that is how I would have made shit happen. And personally, I can't say whether that's a good idea or not, but I can say that it would have probably been a much more compelling story than the one that we have gotten. And this first book had so many problems, so many useless, nonsensical similes, so much flowery purple prose that meant nothing. You were being drowned in similes and em dashes the whole time. This book read like molasses. Super slow, super nonsense, nothing, half-baked ideas, half-baked characters, weird time jumps that didn't make any sense. This was a bad book. This was bad. I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads simply because I could not bring myself to give a 1-star review of an indie published debut novel. Okay. I felt pretty bad about it because I was like, it deserves 0 stars. Like that, like this book is nothing, nonsense, but I gave it 2 stars because honestly, like, I can applaud somebody for even trying. Writing a book is hard. I know that writing a book is hard. Writing a good book is even more difficult. And I just hope that this author is able to see some of the issues that this first book had and really able to strengthen the rest of the books in the trilogy. If not, then like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you don't go read this. Honestly, if you want to read this to see for yourself what I'm talking about, then you should, right? Like, I don't want to discourage anyone from checking out this book. If you feel like that's something that you want to do, go ahead and do it. Me personally, I feel like some of the 5-star reviews that this book had, like, here's some of the people that rated this book 5 stars. They must have loved this book so much that they decided they absolutely needed to make a Goodreads account just to go rate this book 5 stars, because none of them have any friends. None of them have read any other books. None of them have anything at all. Brand new profiles, it seems, just to go rate this book 5 stars. They must have really, really loved it. So yeah, that's what I got for this review. Let me know what you think. I mean, you know, if you have seen any of the drama going on, like, feel free to give your 2 cents. So yeah, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Happy reading. I love you. Bye.